We're ranking all the Scream movies. Let's get into it.
What's your favorite scary movie? Amen.
We'll tear your soul apart.
Well, I'm Pennywise the Dancing now.
Oh, Lord on the beast!
God, don't do that.
But sometimes death is better.
Hey everybody, what's up? KillJoy Jake here, and instead of having friends, I have horror movies. Today we're going to be ranking all 5 of the Scream movies, including the new one. So we are going to get into this in just a second, but first I'm going to need y'all to like this video, subscribe, and support me on Patreon if possible. It goes a long way and really helps this channel grow. So make sure to check that out by clicking on the link in the description below. Alrighty, now getting into this, I want to say one thing before I really start ranking all these movies, is that something that I like to promote on this channel and something that we saw talked about in the newest Scream was that let's not be toxic with how we differ in our rankings for this film series, because I have always seen it as a massive positive about the Scream films that everybody has a different list. Like, there's not really one list that I feel like is the most common with the Scream films, and that to me is so interesting and says a lot about this franchise. It says specifically that every entry has something to offer. I think every single entry in the Scream franchise is really good for its own rights and for whatever it does, and everyone has a different favorite movie. Some people think 2 is the best, some people think 3 is the best, some people think the original is the best. I love it. I love that everyone has a totally different take on this franchise, and that so many different people out there love different movies from the series. It's not just like there's not just one movie from this series that is like always number 1 on everybody's list. Even when I made that community post, half the reason I did that was to see like, what do people like think about these movies? Like, what is everyone's like list? And everyone was different. Every single one was different for the most part. I couldn't believe, I was like, wow, that says a lot about this franchise. I love the Scream movies so much. Coming in 5th place, I have Scream 3. Now, even though it's last, I have trash talked it a lot in the past, I have come to respect it. I've really come to like this movie a lot more. I don't think it's just like a heaping dumpster fire of a film. I think there's a lot to appreciate about this movie, despite some of its problems. One of the biggest things is the character development for Sidney Prescott is a huge, huge positive from this movie for me personally. It wraps up the Sidney story really well, I think, and it kind of makes it a perfect trilogy. I definitely missed Kevin Williamson in the writing, I'm not gonna lie. Also, Sidney's ghost mom is, it's a bit silly. Also, another negative thing that I've talked about in the past, so I'm just kind of glossing over it, is just the house explosion setup. That is one of the dumbest things in this entire film series, and I just don't care for it. It does not make any sense. How do you not smell gas? How do you not, like, dude, if that whole house is filled with gas to the point that it would make that giant explosion, you would smell it. You just would. It goes beyond the fact that okay, well, it's a horror movie. We can stretch some things. No, that's right out. That's a little ridiculous. And also the fact of who's rich and lives in California and doesn't have a flashlight. Come on. You're telling me that they don't have a flashlight somewhere in this house? The whole setup for that kill is completely insane. Also, the voice changer, I've gotten into arguments with people about this. We don't have that kind of technology. We didn't have it in 99. We didn't have it in the year 2000. We do not still have it now. We don't have that kind of tech. I'm not arguing with people or explaining this again. So that's a bit of a stretch, especially because I feel like this series is rooted in reality, and that's what is so scary about it. And this film kind of takes it out of that for me personally. It's the silliest Scream movie easily, and there's something to be appreciated there because of that though. Now, with all that silliness, we have a third act that is one of the best in the entire franchise, which, yeah, I can't believe I'm saying that. I'm sure some people are going to disagree, but Roman is the killer. The reveal of how he set up everything, I think, is really cool. I think the first time watching it, I didn't love it because it just felt like it felt tacked on to me. It felt like why are we doing this? Why are we explaining things about the past? Why are we going back to the first movie with this movie? I've come to appreciate it. I've come to appreciate Roman as a killer. I've come to appreciate the fact that he kind of set up all the stuff with Billy and Stu, and like that he basically made it happen to kill Sidney's mom. I've come to like it. I've actually come to really like it, and I've come to really like Roman as a Ghostface killer. Even though maybe at first I didn't. But moving on to the 4th spot, which is Scream 2. Now, this I'm sure is going to be really controversial. I've seen a lot of people say that this is actually their favorite Scream movie, which is kind of shocking to me. I think that this one easily has the best opening scene of any of the sequels, even though I know a lot of people really liked the opening scene in the new one. This opening scene is iconic to me. I think the opening scene of 2 is just so wonderfully set up and brilliant and brutal. The bathroom kill, the knife through the door, the fake wall in a bathroom. I don't know, the stall wall. I like that. Oh my god. Knife through the stall wall. I can't even say that without laughing. Yeah, no, that kill's great. And then the scariest thing about this opening scene, which is why I personally think it's my favorite out of all the sequels at least, is Jada Pinkett Smith's character. She gets stabbed and she's literally dying, and she gets up on the stage to try and get someone's attention, and everyone thinks it's a joke. That's psychologically terrifying. I mean, that's some really scary stuff right there. I think that whole idea of like just literally dying and you're trying to get help and everyone thinks it's a joke, that's terrifying. That's one of the most terrifying things that this entire franchise, in my opinion, has to offer. I mean, that's a really scary opening scene. I love it. I think the opening scene is the strongest part of this movie. And then the weakest part of the movie is the killer reveal. Mickey, I like Mickey a lot, but they underutilize his character the entire movie. He disappears halfway through the film, and I don't know why. I think he had the potential to be one of the best Ghostface killers, but the man just disappears from the movie, and we don't really get to know him that well, which is, that's a big problem for me at least. I would have liked to see more of him and less of Debbie, because Mrs. Loomis sucks. I hate Mrs. Loomis. She is maybe my least favorite Ghostface killer. She's so silly and over the top and not in a good way. Like, look, not trying to discount this actress at all, but I just don't care for her performance at all as Mrs. Loomis. Not a fan. It's so over the top. It's so ridiculous. It's so silly. And it doesn't work for me personally. It really never has. I don't like the fact that we just decided to throw Mrs. Loomis in this movie. It would be like if we had, like, let's say this is the 8th movie in this franchise, and it would be like throwing in a character that was briefly discussed in like the first movie as the killer in this new film. It's that same energy to me. It doesn't, I don't care for it. I don't care for it at all. Mrs. Loomis being the killer, and it's also ripping off Friday the 13th for some reason. I don't know. It's such a weird connection to that film. It doesn't work for me at all. Not a fan of Mrs. Loomis whatsoever. One last positive I want to say about the second film is Joel. Joel is such a great character, and I just love his whole, like, what he does in this movie. He's a very funny character. I love that he just kind of dips out. What other slasher movie have you seen where a character was just like, nope, bye? Like, I love that. I love that we actually have a competent character here. Not saying that Sidney Prescott or like Gail Weathers, Dewey Riley, I'm not saying they're not competent, but I'm saying for someone to be really like a very neutral character to just get the hell out. Like, we never see that in slasher movies, and I really appreciate that about Joel's character. It's a very funny thing, and a great performance from this actor as well. I love Joel. I would love to see him come back in a new Scream 6 potentially. Moving on to the third spot. Third place, who's getting the bronze? I'm giving it to Scream 4, baby, because wow, I love this movie a lot. I think that now people like this movie a little more. I feel like it's aged very well. I know a lot of people did not care for this film when it came out, but I think it easily has some of the better characters this franchise has to offer. Kirby Reed being one of them. Jill. Emma Roberts playing Jill Roberts. I love her. I really love Jill. She's one of my favorite killers. I think she makes the top 5 for Ghostface, at least, and that's not really saying much because there's not that many Ghostface killers. But Jill is a great killer. I really think the Jiller killer. I like her. I'm a fan of her a lot. I think she's scary. She's very brutal. She is a lemon-scented evil that we don't even see with some of the other Ghostface killers. Some of them are silly, like Mrs. Loomis, and Jill is the opposite of that. Jill is very evil and just a sick son of a bitch. I love her. I think her performance is great. I know a lot of people don't care for it, but she's great in my opinion. She's that, like, the evil side of like being an influencer. It's that dark and selfish version of that I feel like is recognized really well with her character. Kirby Reed, on the other hand, is the essential horror nerd girl, and I think Hayden Panettiere plays her very well. I would love to see Kirby come back for a sequel now that we know that she's alive. You know, if I spoiled that for you, you shouldn't be watching this video, because like, if you haven't seen Scream 5 yet, why are you watching this video? I'm gonna be talking about these movies, so don't Don't be watching this if you haven't seen the new Scream, because I'm gonna spoil it here shortly. So that's your warning, I guess. A minus though to the fourth Scream film is the opening scene. This is easily the worst opening scene of the entire franchise. And I just don't care for it. I get what they're trying to do. Like, I understand it, but it's done very clunkily and kind of in a lazy manner. They tried to push way too much into this 11-minute scene. And like, one fake out's cool. That would have worked for me personally. But 2 fake outs? That's just silly. That it's way too over the top, especially for a movie that has such brutal kills and tries to bring a brutality to Scream that maybe some of the other movies didn't have. That's another positive, is how brutal some of the kills are in this movie. Olivia's death, that's up there. That's like a top 5 Scream kill, I think, for me personally. And I just don't feel like this opening scene fits with this movie. You change that, you change the extension scene at the end, which I know was tacked on because they wanted to leave Jill. They wanted to make that movie a cliffhanger, but the Weinsteins were against that. That's a whole different story, man. I didn't care for the hospital scene at the like. You take the ends off of this movie, and it's great. I think it's nearly a masterpiece of a film. But it's just the opening scene and the extension of the ending that I just don't care for with that film. Moving on to the second place. Who's taking the silver? I'm giving it to Scream 5, baby. Scream 2022. Scream the new one, not the one from 96. Scream 2022. There are some massive things I love about this film, and if you want to see me, like, honestly, I could do an entire hour-long video on all these movies. Maybe not 2 or 3, but like for sure, like 4 or 5 and the first one. And if you want to see me talk a lot about Scream 2022, you can check out this video up here where I do a whole spoiler talk on it for a half an hour. So if you really want to see me deep dive into Scream 2022, check that video out. I'm going to give you a brief like summary of how I felt about the film. One of my biggest positives for the movie is the massive changes it made to the typical formula. Sure, Scream 4 kind of mixes it up a little bit and is experimental to some degree, but the thing that I love the most about Scream 2022 is the fast-paced and the brutality of knife kills. I was asking for a long time. I was saying like, hey, let's get some more inventive kills. The kills that stand out from this franchise for me personally are the ones that are done without the knife. And what we got instead from Scream 2022 was inventive knife kills. It was slower. It was more personal. It wasn't just like a stab and you're dead, except for Vince. For the most part, besides Vince's death, I think they did a really good job making the knife kill creative and scary again with this movie, which is not an easy feat to accomplish. This movie does a really good job at that, and that was one of the most impressive things to me about it, to make a slasher scary and inventive again like that, by doing something so simple. Like, it's not anything super, there's no really super inventive or crazy kills in this movie. It's all stuff done with a knife, but man, is it scary. I mean, that's maybe more impressive than doing some kind of crazy, elaborate kill, in my opinion, at least. Probably the biggest negative about this movie, though, is how clunky the plot is and how certain things are set up in a way that I feel like maybe are just a little too kind of whack. And that definitely takes my rating down from like a 9 to an 8 or like an 8.5 for me personally, just because there are things that are set up in kind of a weird way. But they had to do it this way because Radio Silence, the writers like James Vanderbilt, Guy Busick, they have even said that like we took this movie as our one shot to make a Scream film. So we wanted to pack it full of everything we wanted to see from the franchise. One of those things being it was killing a legacy cast character. And man, do I respect these guys for doing that. Radio Silence and the writers of this film have some big old fucking nuts. I would not, like, if they handed me the keys to this kingdom, I don't think I would have the balls to do that. I'm gonna be honest. I really respect these guys for doing that. It's a very controversial thing to do, to kill a beloved character like that from this franchise. But yeah, I mean, I agree with them though. It's gotten to the point where it's almost silly that Dewey has survived so many different attacks. And to kill him off in this movie, I think that brings it back. That brings this whole series back into reality. Back to reality. I sound like I'm Eminem right now, but that's the whole point. That's the biggest thing I really enjoyed about Dewey's death. Yes, it was sad, and I'm very sad about it. I don't want to sound like a Dewey hater, because who the hell hates Dewey Riley? What the hell is wrong with you? If you don't like that sweet and charming, amazing man, but I think he had to die. And that's it's a tough call. It's a tough thing to talk about, but it brings this series back into rooted reality. Now, another thing I loved about this film was the new characters. This movie, in my opinion, has some of the best characters across the board. There's always at least like 1 or 2 characters in a movie. Debbie Salt, for example. I'm sorry, guys. I really don't like Mrs. Loomis. But I think that there's always like 1 or 2 characters that are kind of either annoying to me or like don't have enough screen time. And for the most part, I feel like all these characters have a really good line at some point in this movie. I've seen a lot of people talk very negatively about Liv McKenzie, but I think she has some really good scenes in this film. It's few and far between. I will say that she could have used some more screen time, as well as Wes. I feel like Wes from this movie could have used some more screen time. But for the most part, I liked all these characters. All of them do their job at what they were what they were signed on for. Everybody did. I think, in my opinion. I know a lot of people also said that Melissa Barrera was a little wooden, but I think that was the point. She's Billy's daughter, so she is supposed to be a little wooden, and she's also on medication too. She's not going to be like all cheery and excited, you know, and being this super elaborate character when she's not only being medicated, but she's also the daughter of a serial killer. That wouldn't have worked for me personally. I much prefer this performance over a final girl that's like super confident, because that doesn't work with her character as much. I feel like, especially if they're going to do a trilogy with these new movies, we can see that character development happen for Sam, but just that wouldn't work in the first movie. Because like I did say, they weren't planning on making a trilogy with this, but I definitely think in the back of their heads, they thought to themselves, in case this becomes a trilogy, that could be something we could focus on through 3 movies, with Sam's character development, as well as Tara's. We could see the sisters taking down some Ghostface killers, some Reddit killers who want to get this movie made, that Richie and Amber want so bad. That could be the motive that connects all 3 of these movies, which I would be so down for. That was recently suggested by my buddy Ryan C. Showers, who does that amazing podcast. Not sure if you guys listen to that or not, but you should check it out. He recently tweeted something out about how like these Reddit killers could be trying to make Richie and Amber's movie instead of letting them die in anonymity, like Gail Weathers says. So that would be sick to see in some future sequels going forward. But once again, if you want to see me talk more about this, do a deeper dive into Scream 5, Scream 2022, whatever the heck you want to call it, 5 Cream even. Check that video out. Once again, link is up here somewhere. Make sure to check that out. The first place spot, which I feel like is just like, what movie beats this for its impact to the horror genre, is of course Scream 96, not the new one, the old one. I love this film. It's a 10 out of 10 horror movie. It's perfect. It's a wonderful movie. One of the biggest, here's the thing, guys. This is a ranking video, so I don't want to spend too much time talking about Scream 1996, because this won't be a ranking video anymore. This will just be me talking about this movie I could talk about this movie for an hour. There's so much to talk about when it comes to the original Scream and what it did for the genre, what it does as a movie that makes it so good. But to give you a very, very brief thing about why I like it so much, which is not going to do this film justice, is one of the biggest things is they marketed this movie as this Drew Barrymore-led horror film, and it's cool, it's gonna be a slasher and everything. Everyone goes to this film, sees Drew Barrymore die in the first 11 minutes. That has got to be some of the most genius marketing for a horror film of all time. I mean, wow. And I'm speechless. I'm speechless at the fact that they accomplished that and kept it a secret. That is so fucking cool. That there is surprises all along the way throughout this film, which I feel like is kind of done well with the new film, with the surprises, because something I didn't even realize about what I love about this original film, which after rewatching it recently is something I noticed, was there's so many big shocks and surprises throughout the runtime of this movie that you might not have even caught the first time, because it's just like on rewatch, you're like, oh my God, there's this and that and all that. But with all those surprises, I will say one of the weakest elements of this entire movie is the Billy Loomis mystery, because they try to make it so obvious that like, oh, it can't be Billy, there's no way, but then it's like, yeah, it's Billy. Who else could it be? There comes a point in this movie where you're like, they try to make you think it's Randy, and it's like, no, it's not. There's no way it's Randy. That's insane. After rewatching it so many times, yeah, the mystery could have maybe been written in a different way, but I don't mind it, because Stu was a shock to me. I did not think that Stu, maybe the first time watching it, I could see someone getting fooled into thinking it would, like, Stu wasn't the killer, but like Billy Loomis is so obviously doing all of this, and I don't know. And they even make fun of it in Scary Movie. I mean, when like the phone drops out of his pocket in the scene in this movie, they make fun of that in Scary Movie. The phone drops, the ghost face mask drops, the knife drops. Like, I love that scene because it's that perfectly captures how I feel about the mystery shrouded around Billy Loomis in this movie. It maybe could have been done better, but for the most part, that's the only flaw I really have with this movie. Everything else holds up to today's standard, I would say. If this movie, exactly how it is, came out today, people would still love it. And people would still say it's a 10 out of 10 horror film. And that's the biggest positive. There's really not much more I can say about this without going on some crazy tangent that's gonna last an hour, but it's really one of the best and most important horror films and the most influential of all time. That's like not even arguable. There was an entire wave of this like subgenre of these like cool slasher flicks that came after that. Urban Legend, I Know What You Did Last Summer, a bunch of other movies that Kevin Williamson wrote. It even influenced the fucking Halloween franchise with Halloween H2O and Resurrection that are both very similar to the style of Scream. Final Destination is another one of those. There's so many movies that this film influenced. It influenced a whole subgenre of late 90s, early 2000s horror films. And I love them. I love a lot of those films. They're a lot of fun. They're not as scary. They much more focus on the fact that like it's like they try to make horror cool again. And I think they did successfully. We wouldn't be sitting here talking about horror films if it wasn't for Scream 96. We also wouldn't be here talking about horror films if it wasn't for Halloween 78. Both of those movies I think are the most important horror films of all time. They changed the genre for the better in their own respective ways, and really have kept this franchise, not just their franchises alive because they were original horror movies, but they kept the genre alive for such a long time. They are what Eddie Murphy was to SNL. No one will get that joke because my audience is very young, but that's okay. Thank you guys so much for watching my ranking video of the Scream movies. What do you guys think? Do you agree, disagree? You probably disagree because like I said, this franchise is all over the place. People have a different favorite with all these movies. I was kind of boring and said that the original was the best, but that's just how I feel about it. How do you guys feel about it? Leave me something about it in the comments, and also leave me your rankings so we can talk about it. Thank you all so much for watching my ranking video of the Scream films. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and support me on Patreon if you can. Even $1 a month gets you extra content every month. You get to see extra videos of me just going crazy with my set and shit. It's great. It's gonna be great. I'm announcing a new series soon where I literally just I talk about all the new movies I buy, because people really liked the video where I went through my whole horror collection back there. So I'm gonna do a video once a month where I just talk about all my new pickups and stuff. So that's gonna be cool. If you want to see that, $1 a month. That's it. That's all I'm asking for. Make sure to check that out. The link for that will be in the description below. Thank you guys all again for watching this video, and as always, don't forget to kill it out there, y'all.